Here we are live on It's My Friday. My name is Scott Stanfield. I am the modern longevitarian, and today is Biohack Wack Wednesday. And this is the day that I go over the test that I have done on myself. And what I want to do is welcome everybody here that's on LinkedIn, welcome everybody here that's on Facebook and YouTube. And the Wim Hof method is something that I've done almost 5 years, and I really want to get deep into that today. But before I do, I want to encourage you to do self-test on yourself. Wow, you know, I want to give you permission. I want to give you permission to go out and test your mind, test your body, and to test your soul. Test not your physical strength, but mental strength, because no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to fix you. You know you better than anybody else. You know, you feel every pinch, you feel every grind in the joint, you feel, every muscle pulled, you feel every ache and pain. And you have to ask yourself, what do I need to do to feel better? And how am I going to get there? And I suggest you start with cleaning up your sleep pattern, right? Your sleep hygiene, right? That's really where the one thing that really impacts everything is sleep. It touches every system in the body. And so I wrote a book on that called Outstanding Landing. You can go to my website, modernlongevitarian.com/sleep. And you can learn through these 7 short chapters how to get the sleep of your dreams. And so that's where you really start. Now, why testing? Why testing? Well, I used to race go-karts and won multiple championships, and I was blessed to be sponsored by Sox Racing and Shadow Karts, and had some great friends that helped us along the way. Furman and Lewis Myers were great supporters of ours, and also the Herman family helped as well, and helped really. And my dad was really, and always has been, my biggest fan. But what happens is that you test, right? Even when you're winning championships, you're winning races, you could be fast, but you also have to be willing to throw out the setup that you had last week, especially if you're at a new track, to win this week, right? So there's always this testing going on, this mindset of how can you improve? How can you get better? How can you get faster? So instead of being stuck in this rut that you are with your with your body, your health span, or saying that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, all of this is genetic expression. All of these pillars that you can see on here: mindset, breath, hydration, sleep, food, fasting, feasting, movement, getting uncomfortable, which is today's topic. One of the half of that, getting cold, and connecting. All of those influence genetic expression. And you have agency, and I want you to flex your agency muscle to be able to really live your best life. And I'm not saying that as like the best life is a meme or any of those type of things, but what happens is, if you went out and tested the Wim Hof method just for 90 days to see how it impacted you. Now, this is an interesting thing, and we live in this thermostat, climate controlled world, right? We do all the time. And because what happens is your thermostat is set in your house year round. Air conditioning, we live in the mountains, so we don't have an air conditioner, but our heater, our thermostat on our furnaces is set. And it changes day and night and that type of things. But what happens is you try to keep your home temperature 70 degrees. And when you go to work, most likely, if you work indoors, you're 70 degrees. What about the thermostat in the car? 70 degrees. If it's cold outside, do you warm your car up in advance so it's warm when you get in there? Do you put a jacket on to keep your body warm when it's cold outside? Do you wear layers of clothes? What about if you're skiing or snowboarding or snowshoeing? What about the gear that you wear to keep your body warm? What about when you go and it's hot outside, you take clothes off to keep your body temperature in a certain place, right? So my point is this: You got to step out of your comfort zone. You got to get uncomfortable and tap into the physiology of your body and how it was designed to work. Because what happens is when you get cold and you don't have a jacket on, you don't have extra layers on, you don't have your snow gear on, what happens is your body actually goes into this mode where it actually starts pulling blood into your core to keep your organs warm. So it pulls it out of your extremities, out of your hands and your legs, your arms and legs and things like that. So when I do a longer, cold exposure, if I'm going to go on a hike or I'm snowshoeing or shoveling the driveway, because we live here at 7,000 feet, we get about 150 inches of snow a year. And this picture right here, the one where I'm holding my hands, when I have the cross on, that just was 2 days ago. It snowed here. Yes, in October it snowed. And so my point being is that your body's designed to keep it warm. It's totally designed to do that. And so you can tap into this. Now, the whole point of doing things like this is hormesis, right? Hormesis in layman's terms is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? And so basically it's not what happens during the cold, is what happens after the cold. It's not what happens during the heat. If you're in a sauna, it happens what after the heat is. Now, David Sinclair, he's a researcher. He's a Harvard PhD. He wrote the book Lifespan, and he actually he talks about, be a little bit hungry, be a little bit winded, and get a little cold and a little hot. And so once a week, he goes to the gym, and he and his son do like cold and they do hot. They do this contrast type thing where they're bouncing back and forth between the two. And even a functional doctor that I went to said you can't always do cold, because what happens is your body's not, if you don't ever get hot, then your body's not releasing toxins through sweat. So you've got to do both, right? So I'm not sitting here saying only do cold. And I did for a long time. Now, January will be 5 years that I've done the Wim Hof method. Now, who is Wim Hof? Let's answer that question. Let me take a sip of this coffee right here. And if you never heard of Wim Hof, he's from the Netherlands. So he's a Dutch, and most people call him a daredevil, right? He does push it to the limit for sure. It's over 20 Guinness Book of World Records. And they're not all in cold, right? Some are strength. Well, one is strength where he hung by one finger, for a certain amount of time, for a really elevated level. He also ran a marathon in I think it's in Nairobi Desert, without drinking water. But those are the other ones, but most of them are cold, right? So he hiked to above 17,000 feet without oxygen on Everest and Kilimanjaro, with only in shorts with boots and crampons on. So no shirt and shorts. So his legs exposed. And then I've seen videos of him, there's tons of stuff on him. He's done the podcast rounds for years. And that's how I discovered him on the Tim Ferriss show. Like I said, January 5 years ago. And this is in October. So I'm almost there. And so he's got world records for how long he sat in ice baths. And hiking, and he's also ran marathons above the Arctic Circle barefooted. He's also swam under a 3-foot ice cap in a lake. They bored 2 holes in 65 meters apart, and he swam under all the way and did that. And so he's done some amazing things, and he stumbled onto this Wim Hof method, by the cold. And there's 3 elements of it. So there are cold exposure, which is what most people talk about, but the biggest piece is the breath, right? And Tim Glowacki's here. Permission to come aboard. Permission granted. I'm glad to have you on. I was a couple minutes late. You know why? Because I was taking a cold shower. I was doing my Wim Hof method today, and I had my and I wanted breathing this morning. I had my pulse oximeter on, and when I held my breath for my second round, my oxygen saturation went down to 55, right? 55, right? So what happens when you do that? It releases some adrenaline and increases your white blood cells, so it increases your immune system, the strength of your immune system. So anyway, here we are, 3 parts to the Wim Hof method. Malia Brown is on. She just made a little, she's laughing so hard she's crying, right? So thanks, Malia, for being here. But so the thing is that the 3 parts. So there's the cold exposure, which most people get caught on and say, I can't never be cold. You can. It's just a mindset piece. The breathing exercises, which Wim went into the cold, went into this icy pond in a park in the Netherlands, and it made him breathe, right? So the force of nature made him breathe. So the breathing, he learned how to breathe by being in the cold. And I think that's really the centerpiece of this whole method is actually the breathing. The cold can force you to do that. And there's so many benefits to cold showers. We'll get into that in a minute as well. And then what he calls commitment. Commitment for him is stretching, and he's done a lot of esoteric research on things. He did martial arts. He speaks multiple languages, yoga, different types of yoga, and this method is similar to his breathing is similar to the inner fire, and I think pranayama is similar to that as well. And so for me, this is what happened. I came home from work. I'm managing a restaurant, busy restaurant in a ski resort town, Park City, Utah, which is where we live. And I had a rough day. And I was running this, my legs were sore. I was stressed out. And I come home and I'm like, I just need a couple minutes to myself. And so I'm running a hot bath. And I'm putting Epsom salt in it. What we would normally do, right? You run a hot bath, you're trying to relax and all those things. And I said, well, I want to listen to a podcast. And most of Tim Ferriss's podcasts are 2 hours or more, right? And this is 5 years ago. So this is like when he was really doing long form stuff. So I scrolled through the list because you don't listen to every one of them. Yeah, I didn't, but I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss. Actually, I have one of his books here, The 4-Hour Work Weeks, right here. And he actually uses in the 4-hour body ice baths, 10 to 12 minute ice baths to increase your metabolism to lose weight. And so he has Wim Hof on, and it's a 54-minute podcast. I'm like, I can do this. I can sit in this bath for 20, 30 minutes. And then before I fall asleep, I can listen to the rest of it. So I can complete this tonight. And so instead of having to wait till tomorrow to hear the closing story. So here we are, the whole Wim Hof method. And I listened to this podcast, and the next morning I have to go shovel snow. My snowboard's broken. My plow's broken down. So I'm shoveling snow, and I'm wearing less layers. So my mindset changed immediately just because of listening to the podcast. So it was like Wim Hof was my Roger Bannister. He broke the 4-minute mile. I'm like, wait a minute, this is possible. And I had lived at the time, we'd lived here like 12 years, and I would always wearing a coat, always wearing gear, always bundling up, always telling your kids, don't go outside without a coat on, don't go outside with wet hair, and you'll catch cold, and just saying things that we were told when we were kids, right? And so my mindset changed from that point forward, and I knew that there was going to be a gradual move into this. Now, prior to this, about a year and a half, I had started taking what's called Scottish showers. And I learned this from and I read an article, I think it was The Art of Manliness, about the difference between the James Bond novels and the James Bond movies. And then one of the differences is that, one of the differences is, right, Malia, this is possible. Awesome mindset shift. Thank you. It is possible. And I'm proof, right, that it is possible that any person can do it. I grew up in South Carolina where it was 100 degrees, all the time. I lived in the Caribbean prior to moving here. And so it was a lot of stuff. But my point being is that, I lost my train of thought. Oh my gosh. And I'm live and I lost my train of thought. All right. I knew there would take time to acclimatize to it. Right. And so I just Scottish showers, James Bond movie. The difference is in the movies, James Bond always took these hot, steamy showers, and there was probably a girl involved with it. Where in the novels, he always took Scottish showers. And a Scottish shower, and this is how Wim Hof and a lot of people say, if you're going to start taking cold showers, is to start with a normal shower, how you normally do, and then move the knob to colder or adjust the water temperature to cold as you go. And now Malia actually has a podcast. It's Amplifying Peace podcast that I listened to. She interviewed a scientist that's proving Wim Hof right. And he said you could do the hokey pokey where you stick your left foot in and pull it out, you stick your right foot in and pull it out, and you can move it in. Now, how I do this is I put a song on for the length of time that I want to be in a cold shower, because I go straight cold now. And my goal is to be my head under the water, but when they start singing the lyrics of the song. Now, if I'm listening to Tiny Dancer by Elton John, that's a 6-minute song. That's a 6-minute cold shower. If you want to do something shorter, you can listen to a shorter pop song that's 3 minutes long to do that. You can do it however you want. You can finish cold. You can start with cold. You can do all cold. This is all up to you, what works for you. Just the other day, it was 9 degrees here, and I was outside, and it'll wake you up for sure. But and so what happens is there is smooth muscle. This is the science behind this. There's smooth muscle on every inch of your blood vessels in your body. And you're basically, if you live in this thermostat world, your smooth muscle never has to contract. So if you're going to start taking cold showers, you're teaching this to contract, to push blood into your core, right? And there's also other things that are happening, but it's going to take time to it's going to take time for I'm getting comments coming in, right? So it's going to take time for your body to adjust to the cold, because if you've lived in this thermostat world your entire life and lived warm, you're going to have to take time to adjust. So that podcast is peaceamplified.com. It is Mark Cohen. Looks like episode 2 of that. So that's where you can listen to that podcast for Malia. So the cold water hokey pokey is where you can learn that. I'm more binary. I'm either in or out. I'm not doing the hokey pokey. And but there's different ways of doing that. But it's going to take about 2 weeks for your body to acclimatize to taking these cold showers. So don't go straight cold, especially if you're in the Rocky Mountains. It's a really cold shower here. Now, I would say this, that cold showers in California don't measure up to what you can do here. And I did take cold showers when I've been in California for some stints of time, 5 weeks, 9 months at a time, and it's more difficult to do that. But here's the thing. So there's cold showers, there's breathing, and then there's the commitment piece of the puzzle. Now, what happened is it got reversed, right? So Wim went in the cold, learned how to breathe. Then now his method is breathe first, then go into the cold, because breathing, as he says, alkalines the body, and pain passes through a acid channel, right? Acid ion channel. And so it lowers or raises your pain threshold so you can handle more. But what really, what I see happens is that I'm releasing some adrenaline, right? Because when you're breathing, right, when you're doing and I interviewed Lucas Rockwood, who has a TED Talk on breathing that has millions of views, and he is the founder of Yoga Body. And he's on my podcast, Modern Longevitarian Podcast. He actually said that Wim Hof's method is a yogi's speedball. And because you're mixing, there's three types of breathing, and there is a stimulating breath, which is this controlled hyperventilation, or 20 or more breaths per minute. Then there's a balancing breath, which is, about 6 to 8 breaths per minute. And then there is a relaxing breath where you get below that 6. And Dr. Wheel has, and this is in the sleep book, Dr. Wheel has the 478, which is a natural tranquilizer for your nervous system. And so what Wim Hof does is you do this controlled hyperventilation where you're breathing in probably about 30 to 40 breaths in a minute's time. And then you breathe all the air out of your lungs, and then you actually hold your breath, right, with no air in your lungs. And you do that for 3 to 4 times. Then and I did this morning. I did it twice, actually. And then the third time, I did another aspect of his is where you do the same breathing method, and then you do push-ups without breathing. Now, this does truly alkaline your body, because you can do more push-ups this way than you ever could if you were just normally going to jump down and do some push-ups. And I've done up to 60 push-ups without breathing. This morning I did 30 planche pseudo push-ups, which is where your hands are closer to your waist, right? So you're using more body weight than your hands being up here. And so there's less weight on your feet when you do it this way. And this is part of a goal that I have, is to be able to do a full-on planche push-up before age 50. And so I've got a year and a half to go to do that. So I'm using the Wim Hof method to make myself stronger to do that particular push-up. I don't typically do things like squats and stuff like that when I'm holding my breath, and I've been doing these breathing exercises, because you're too lightheaded, too dizzy, and you can crash and burn. And that's not what I'm looking at. And you have to really know your own limits with this. Now, we in America typically want to improve every single day, right? If we can do, let's use push-ups. If we can do 10 push-ups a day, when we'll be able to do 15 tomorrow, and then move on and on and on, to where like we're just constantly going up. Now, with your breath retention, there are multiple things that come into play. How good did you sleep last night? If you don't sleep good, you're not holding your breath as long. If you are highly inflamed, you're not going to hold your breath as good as you did yesterday. So if your diet was bad yesterday, today, your breath retention is not going to be good. You actually can hold your breath longer when you're in ketosis as well. So if you're in keto, that'll help you. And so there's so many different things that come into play with your breath retention. So don't get caught up on the clock, because that's not where it's at. You have to go with your own feeling. So there's days that my first breath retention is 2 minutes long. And there's days my first breath retention is 1:25. And I do my best to not judge myself on my performance on holding the breath, because what happens is, whether I'm holding my breath for 1:25 or for 2 minutes, the same process happens in my body. There is a release of adrenaline. There is an increased amount of white blood cells. So those things happen. Also, in terms of like, if you're not feeling it on a cold shower, if you're not feeling it, I got this just in from Tim. It acidifies your body. Without normal amounts of oxygen, your body goes into a acidic cycle, acidic cycle, which produces, strangely, lactic acid. Interesting. We'll have to talk about that more when I have you on. And I know, Tim, you know a ton about this. This is what you went to school for. We will, when I have you on the show, when I have you show, we'll go deeper on that. Anyway, so my point being is this, right? If you're not feeling on the cold shower, like if you're feeling sick, like if I get, if I'm not feeling 100%, I may not take a cold shower that day, because the process of taking a cold shower actually weaken your immune system. It's the response to the cold shower, it's the response to the breathing that actually increases your immune system, right? So that's really what happens, right? So anyway, let's see what's the next piece of this, right? Now, let's talk about, love you too, Tim. I will say this, right? I had done research on the ketogenic diet. I'd also listened to a 3.5 hour long Tim Ferriss show podcast interviewing Dr. Dom D'Anastasio about the ketogenic diet. And I listened to it on a plane ride from South Carolina back to Utah. And that was in November. And so I knew about it, and I did away with white bread when I came back. And, I was intermittent fasting every day, so I wasn't overweight or any of those type of things. But when I started doing the Wim Hof method and I was exposing myself to cold, what I found out is I started craving fat. And I knew, no matter if my ingredients were organic or wild caught or grass fed, grass finished, that if I mix my macros with high carbs and high fat, that I was going to gain weight. And that's not what I want to do. I want to stay at as close as I can to an optimal body weight for my body type. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm loving how I feel from the Wim Hof method. Therefore, I'm craving fat. And so I need to go into ketosis, and I need to be keto. So that's what I did. And so that's why, if you hear me, my relationship with the ketogenic diet and my relationship with the Wim Hof method started within a couple weeks of each other. And I will say this, when I lived in California for 9 months, it was very, very difficult for me to stay keto in comparison to how it was when I lived in the mountains of Utah. And so environment helps, right? And so if you think about the Inuits or and they're being in a ketogenic diet, they lived in the Arctic, right? So it was easier for them because they didn't have, you know, the fruits and vegetables that grow in the tropics and those type of things. So where you are matters as well. And also because what happens is you can take a cold shower in California, it's not, or South Carolina or anywhere else that is warmer, and you get out of the shower and it's warmer. You warm up really fast, right? Like today, I could go outside today and spend 2 hours on a hike, and I'm not going to warm up super fast. It's going to be a gradual thing. Now, I do have some of my insights from being a practitioner of this, okay, that I want to give you right now. And then I'm going to tell you a funny story about the first time that I went deep into the Wim Hof method, which was by accident. Okay. Number one, I already given this tip, which start slow. It takes about 2 weeks for your smooth muscle to condition itself. Number two, don't heat up too fast. So what happens is that your body pushes blood into your core, right? Is pushing blood into your core. That means that the blood vessels in your fingers and your toes and your hands and your feet and your legs is all constricted, right? So if you actually go into a super, a warm environment, from being cold for a while, right? I'm not talking about a 3-minute cold shower, but I'm talking about being outside for cold, or taking an ice bath, a 10, 12-minute ice bath, or any of those things. And you warm up too fast, like switch to a hot shower, a hot bath, or jump into a heated bed, or whatever you're going to do, your body's going to start forcing blood through constricted blood vessels in your fingers and your toes, and it's going to be extremely painful. Trust me, I learned this from experience. I went on this super long hike, was out in the cold for 2 hours, no shirt on, shorts, just some shoes, no insulated, like winter boots or any of those things. And I came home and came upstairs where it was warm, and I was in severe pain. So be careful of that one. I also, because I don't take the time to, submerge my hands and my feet into ice like Wim Hof does, and he teaches it in his course. I do wear some gloves, some really thin gloves. They're not insulated or winter gloves. They're more like work gloves that have like rubber on them, because when there's less blood in your fingers and stuff, you lose your dexterity and your grip and stuff. So they're very grippy gloves in case I need to do something like I'm snow blowing or those type of things. And then I wear a hat, right? Because a lot of heat's lost through your hat as well, or through your head as well. Keep moving. I know there's a lot of pictures of Wim Hof online of him meditating and doing the breathing exercise, and you can do that. That's fine. But you notice all of those, he's not in the shade. He's in the sun. So the sun, when you have no shirt on and it's 30 degrees outside, the sun is very warm, and also a t-shirt is very warm, right? There's a lot of heat capture just in a really thin t-shirt. You would be surprised with that. And here's another one. As long as you're sweating under your armpits, as long as I'm sweating under my armpits, I knew no matter what, no matter how cold I felt or mentally I was struggling, that my body was warm because I was sweating. So those are little small indicators that I had for there. When it's wet and windy, you will feel colder than you will if it's dry humidity or less humidity, or if it's not windy. So we went on a hike to this Donut Falls in Utah, and there's water leaking into this cave through this hole, and I got wet going in there. Stuff dripping on me. I had no shirt on, had no jacket with me, was wearing shorts, boots with some grippers on them, right? I got cold. I got really cold coming back there. Also, I went swimming once in a reservoir, and before the sun came up, got really cold. It took me hours to warm up from that. So getting wet is something that's going to make you colder than if it's just dry air. I lived in Estes Park, Colorado for 5 months. It's windy there, really windy. And you go on a hike there, I would wear light shirts instead of no shirt, because the wind would it was taking it to an extreme that I wasn't really prepared to. And I was even a practitioner at the time for 2 years when I was doing that. So you just got to be careful of these outside conditions and all of those things for that. Now, here's some benefits of this. Right. Or let me tell you the funny story for me. I was started doing the Wim Hof method. I've probably been doing it about a month. And we tend to go a lot to the Freestyle World Cup at Deer Valley. And I was working, and my wife said, "Okay, let's go tonight." And she's like, "What do you want me to bring?" I bring my blue boots, bring a pair of jeans. I have a t-shirt on under my work, my button-down shirt, my dress shirt. I got that. So just bring my red coat, hat, gloves, right? And she brought all that except my jacket. So here I am, white t-shirt, blue jeans, insulated, Sorel boots, gloves, and a hat, and no jacket. And it's the sun's going down. We're going to this nighttime event in Deer Valley, and I went. And I have a video somewhere of me on the ski lift doing that. I'll have to post that at some point to talk about that. But so we went, and you know what? Now I had a safety net. We had some press passes. We could go in the booth and go in and or go into the tent and eat some food and warm up and do those things. So I knew in my mind that if I got really cold, that I had this safety vent, right? So, but I said, let's go, right? Let's just go like this. And it was intriguing to see people's look on their face. And I've done that multiple times going to that event now. Once to short a t-shirt, and even the paramedics would stop and ask me, "It's like, are you hypothermic?" I'm like, "No, I'm fine. I do this all the time. I do it on my show, on my driveway and stuff." "Where you're moving, then you're just standing here. The sun's not out." I'm like, "Yes, but I'm fine." And I was fine. Now, my get in the car, and it was like, and my wife's like, "I'm concerned about your breathing." I'm like, it's just a process of being cold, right? Of breathing this way. And so, so those are other things. Now, I don't know if you know about Wim Hof, you know the story about him getting injected with endotoxins on purpose, and it had no effect on him. And he basically was doing the breathing exercises when that happened. So then they said, "Well, this is just Wim Hof. He can do this." He said, "Well, we had picked 10 people randomly. They trained them for 4 days. They did the same thing. They injected them with the same endotoxin that had no effect on them, no impact on them." So it's important, the mindset and brain-body connection. Now, I forgot to mention that one of the reasons that I did this was I wanted to really help show my kids that there was a new way or something they could do to they could change their mindset, right? That if dad could do it, then it's possible for them. And it's true. My son goes outside, he snow blows, and he's wearing jeans and a t-shirt, right? He's not full on Wim Hof, and he won't do a Wim Hof, take your shirt off, go on a hike with me type thing. But he does that on his own naturally. And that's really cool. And my kids see me go outside, and they, and it really changes their mindset about what's possible as well. So you can do this for your family too. You can be your own families or friends, Roger Bannister, and break the cold barrier and do those things. Let's talk about some benefits of cold showers. It increases your metabolism. It releases endorphins. It increases circulation. Your immune system becomes stronger. It improves mood. Now, one way it does improve mood, it changes the blood flow in the brain from your monkey brain, the outside part of your brain, to your limbic brain or your lizard brain. And so it affects mood. So there were times when I would come home from work and I'd be really stressed out. I would jump in a cold shower or even a full-on ice bath to really reset myself so I could be present with my family. So those things. So guys, it increases testosterone. I know that the old saying is, go take a cold shower to calm down. And that is true, because in the moment, cold does cause things to kind of slow down in that area. But 20 to 25 minutes later, you're going to have an increase in testosterone along with these other things. Now, if you combine this with nasal breathing, which is releasing nitric oxide, and you're struggling in the bedroom, so you've got this nitric oxide release, right? You've got this increased testosterone from taking cold showers. You may be able to skip that blue pill if that's something that you have to do to make things happen, right? So this is genetic expression, right? This is what we're talking about here. We're talking about changing the way your genes express themselves, and you can do this by really tapping into these 8 pillars, right? Now, Wim Hof is on record that I've seen him talking about, it doesn't matter which hole you inhale through, your mouth or your nose. Now, when I started doing the Wim Hof method, I was inhaling through my mouth, right? I wasn't a nasal breather. I was a mouth breather then. I wasn't taping my mouth shut, then. I wasn't, at night when I sleep using Somnifix, I wasn't using those strips yet. I hadn't really, been down that trail. And, but about halfway through the process, or halfway through my time doing Wim Hof, I started doing nasal breathing, started doing that. My retention times went down a little bit, but then I was able to bring them back over a couple weeks time back to what my normal retention times were. And by doing nasal breathing. So science is on a different side of the fence with this, as I am in terms of what Wim Hof says. So nasal breathing is by far superior to mouth breathing. So inhale every breath that you possibly can every single day through your nose, right? I get it if you're working out really hard that may not work out, but that's true. Nasal breathing is by far most important. All right, let's see what else I got in my notes here. All right, to talk about weight loss or increased metabolism. Taking a cold shower could be worth about 9 pounds of weight loss a year. So a daily cold shower could be worth about 9 pounds of weight loss a year. Now, did you know that you have 2 types of fat in your body? And it's especially true for babies, but it changes over time. So the jiggly stuff is white fat. Then there's brown fat. So you can, by doing cold exposure, taking cold showers, ice baths, you can actually convert white fat into brown fat. Now, brown fat actually increases your metabolism because it has mitochondria in it, which is what makes it turn a different color. Also, there's other things to know. So that's super important. About mood. There's actually, before there were pharmaceuticals in clinics where people were going for depression and things like that, there actually would be prescribed up to 2 cold baths a day, ice baths a day. It is super cool, the mood change that can go on from taking just a cold shower. So there's something hidden in the cold, and I encourage you to tap into it and do that. All right, let's see what else I got here in my notes, because I'll make sure I don't want to miss anything. All right, did that. How I found him. All right. I was struggling with breathing, which is one reason why I did this too, because there's a breathing aspect to that. So it's one of the different types of breathings that I do. There's 3 categories. There's a upshift, right? If you switch your breathing from automatic into manual, you can do this stimulating breath, this controlled hyperventilation. So it's stimulating breath. Then there's a balancing breath, which is like a 4x4 box breath, right? And I was coming down, and then there's that where your exhale is double the amount of your inhale. So inhale for a count of 4, then hold for 7, and then exhale for 8. It will calm your system down, which is the breath because we're so jazzed in our world, which is the breath that most people see when you sit down to meditate or you go to yoga. They want you to do this calming breath, right? And Wim Hof is a mix of the stimulating and the calming breath. So I was struggling with adult and exercise-induced asthma. I never had asthma as a kid, and so these are the things that I did, to try to combat that. All right, make sure I don't keep this going too long. I want to make sure, but I said everything I want to say here. All right. Well, that's it. The Wim Hof. I didn't really get deep into stretching because the commitment part of it. I do stretch. I stretch about, obviously when I work out, I stretch. I don't do so much in terms of a warm up because static stretches can impair performance. More of a dynamic stretch. I've spent a lot of time where I've stretched, sometimes months every night before I go to bed. I do this founder stretch and what I just basically stretch my hips in every single direction, because for me, that's what I needed, right? I needed my hips to be more flexible in every single direction. I still struggle a little bit in those areas, but I do it, day in and day out. So those are the 3 elements of the Wim Hof method, right? Which are the breathing exercises, which basically, trigger a series of chemical releases in your body to make your immune system stronger. Then there's the cold exposure, cold showers, cold baths, however you want to do it. If you don't live in an area where you actually can just go outside like I can, then you've got to figure out how to do that. There's even people who take deep freezers, chest freezers, and convert them. They seal them with the seams with silicone. They put water in it, turn it onto a certain thing, and have a little bit of ice in there. They unplug them, and because you don't want to get in it with it plugged in, and you then you can get into that if you live in a warmer climate. I'm probably going to get a horse trough and have that out in the backyard and climb into that. All right, this question just in from Malia. She goes, what about regulating the nervous system for trauma? I think Wim Hof mentions he got into this breathing after his experience with his wife. Yes, that is exactly a great question, Malia. Thank you. He actually, and he was super depressed. Had 4 kids. and his wife committed suicide. She actually jumped off a 6-story building, and he didn't know what to do, right? So he was down and out, and I think he actually worked he was a postal worker, like a mailman in the Netherlands, and so he was on a Sunday morning walking through a park, and he saw this. He felt called to call in, and I'm doing this. This is the layer of ice on top of this pond in this park, and he's walking through this park, and he feels called to go into this pond and do that. And so that's the mood aspect of this, and so it regulates the nervous system, but because what it does is it's changing the blood flow in the brain, right? And so it lowered it changed his mood from depression to being happy. My tagline is happy, healthy, stronger, longer. He's like strong, healthy, and happy. Or the Wim Hof method does everything for you that your mother wants. It makes you happy, healthy, and strong, right? And that's what it does, right? And it's through this mechanism of the cold switching you into a survival state. And that's why the blood flow changes in the brain. That's why you're converting white fat to brown fat. You also your mindset changed too, right? Because you're taking these limiting beliefs and you're just extinguishing them. No pun intended. But you're basically saying that, well, I've been told my whole life that I have to go outside with a coat on, or I can't, or I'll catch a cold, or those type of things. And now you're actually just going to you're able to, you feel bulletproof. You feel like you can do anything, right? And so those are the things that are really really cool with that. But yes, it does impact the nervous system, and it's very calming. I do find myself that I go when I not only does my brain quiet down, but I quiet down, and I get quiet if I'm cold, right? And so that's what'll happen. And so there's times when you need your brain to work, you need it to turn on, and you need those things to happen. And there are times when you want to just relax, right? And be calm and be happy. And this is what the Wim Hof method can help you do. Let's see here. Covered all that stuff. I covered all that stuff. And here I am. I'm not planning on stopping doing the Wim Hof method. It's been almost 5 years, and it's been a test that it's become a part of my life. And so this goes back to what Bruce Lee said: absorb everything, keep what is useful, and discard what is not, and then make it uniquely your own. Now, I'm not just referring to the Wim Hof method. I'm referring to, I had done research on the ketogenic diet 3 months prior to me starting the Wim Hof method. And I then started the Wim Hof method, and I started craving fat. So I had absorbed all this information about being in ketosis and how good it was for you, and those type of things. The cognitive boost, the weight loss, being a fat burner. I absorbed things listening to Dr. Stephen Finney talk about how endurance athletes are switching over, running these 100-mile races, and they were only consuming, even though this was like a 10,000 calorie burn, they were only consuming, like just a couple hundred calories, because their body was able to go these distances with that. I had learned all this stuff about it, but I wasn't practicing it. I wasn't living that low carb lifestyle. And so I decided, that this is because what happens is, as you keep absorbing things, right, you can then dial them up when you really need them. And so that's what I really want you to understand about this. Absorb content, absorb things that you think that might be useful for you, and then go down that rabbit hole and learn it. That way, when you need it, you can dial it up, and you can optimize your own body, your own mind, your own soul, right? And you're optimize and change your genetic expression, right? Tim Glowacki put another one in here. He put, keto is saving my diabetic and soon to be cured of it all. And so think about that. By being in ketosis, he's changing his genetic expression from being a type 2 diabetic to curing himself. That's living proof that you can do this, right? The same thing with me, right? And so I want to just give you permission to take agency and that you have agency over your own genetic expression, and you're not dealt just a hand of cards by mom and dad and say, this is who I am, and I'm, because my dad and my granddad died of a heart attack, as you're eating a double bacon cheeseburger with a double order of fries with chili on them, and saying, I'm going to die of a heart attack too, right? What if you were eating food that was grown by Farmer Lee Jones that I talked about yesterday, that 300 to 600% more density and nutrients than the stuff that you can buy in the grocery store, right? If you're eating that, right, if you're 90% plant-based or 100% plant-based, and you are intermittent fasting, and you are exposing yourself to cold and heat, and you're sleeping really good, what happened to grandpa and dad doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because you're changing your own genetic expression. So I'm going to wrap it up here, folks. This has been an amazing show for me. I appreciate all the people commenting and tagging in on this. And this is the show called It's My Friday. My name's Scott Stanfield. I am I'm not the, but I am a modern longevitarian. And if today is your Friday, I want you to have an amazing weekend and do something like test the Wim Hof method, or test fasting, or test, different types of movement, or connect with nature, which is, by the way, I didn't mention, connecting with nature and going out in the cold is the same thing. So get uncomfortable, connect with nature, connect with your family, change your mindset. And as I said, the cold can extinguish limiting beliefs. Cheers.